Hello, my name's Andy Blankenbuehler, and I'm the choreographer of the upcoming revival of Annie. As choreographer, what my job is to create musical staging that brings the stage pictures to life. A lot of my work actually has to do with me just paying attention to my imagination. So I listen to the songs that I'm choreographing to, I listen to the words of the songs, and I read the scripts, and I pay attention, and I sort of create a story in my head of what I want to happen. So the director gives me input, the writers give me input, and all the music gives me input. And so I walk sort of in circles in my studio and just listen to the music over and over again until I can see the story that I want to bring to life. And then after I see that story, then I figure out how to make dance steps out of it. So if a person is grumpy, is it with my shoulders forward? If a person is free and happy, does the body language go up, and are there jumps and are there turns? So I use my imagination in that way and then slowly build these numbers, build these dances. But that's only a small part of the process. The biggest part of the process is when I finally join the company, when we finally join the actors and the singers and the dancers. So up till then, it's just been music and the director and the writers and the designers telling me about the set. But then the first day of rehearsal comes, and that's when all the magic really happens. So we get into the room with that great, wonderful cast who all have their own imaginations. So we bring our stories, our ideas to them, and then they jump and they run with them. And they say, oh, that's great, but what if we did this? And so everybody goes in together, and the story really comes to life with a brand new energy. So my day starts every morning really early. You know, I thought dancing and choreography was really about making up dance steps, but what I realized along the way was a lot of what I did as a Broadway choreographer was about business. So I start my day on the computer. I work for about an hour at home after my kids wake me up at like 6:30 in the morning, answering emails and corresponding about questions about the set and costumes and casting. And then after that first hour of work, I go to the gym every day. And I exercise for about an hour just to make sure my body stays in good shape for when I'm dancing. Then I take the train downtown to 43rd Street and I start dancing. So usually I dance half a day, and the rest of the day I do more thinking, or I do more correspondence or meetings with casting agents, or casting sessions, or meetings with the director or the set designer or the costume designer. And then I usually go home at dinner time, have dinner with the family, and then I usually do about an hour of business after that, and then my whole day comes to an end, and then the next day it all starts over again. You know, in show business, like so many other things in life, hard work is so important. And as a dancer, there's a lot of hard times. You know, standing at the ballet bar every day, doing those exercises every day, and sweating and having sore muscles. You have to go through all that hard work for the huge payoff. And in show business, there's huge payoffs, which is really great. You finish a great show, and the audience is clapping and screaming and standing for you. That's a really exciting time. You know, one thing that's great about the theater and the musical theater is that it sets the imagination free. And I've talked a lot today about imagination, but that's sort of what the theater does. Sometimes movies are very literal. You watch the story happen before you. But what's really exciting about the theater is we only start the journey for you, and then you finish the journey. So I'm really excited for all this younger audience to sit into the theater, and those stage lights go down, and the music starts to soar, and we start to suggest ideas, and then your imagination takes off. And so what I'm excited to do is bring this great story to a whole new group of people, some of whom have seen the show before and are coming back to see it again, other people who have never seen it, and it's going to be a brand new thing for them. And I know that adults and kids alike are going to sit in the theater and their eyes are going to get wide. The music especially is so wonderful, and the story is so emotional that I know that everyone's going to be leaning forward in their seats, just paying attention to the story and letting their imaginations go wild.
Hi, my name's Tom Watson, and I'm designing the wigs and the hair for Annie on Broadway. One of the first decisions we make is whether we're going to wig the actors or actresses, and that depends on what their hair looks like and what we would need to do to make it work for the piece. Most contemporary women don't have 1930s haircuts and hairdos, so we need to be able to bring that design and that style. One of the main reasons to put people in wigs is remember that they perform 8 times a week. Usually they like to come to the theater about a half hour before. So it just makes the process much easier and much more easy to control. When we've decided to wig them, we make a mold of their head, which is we take a plastic bag, stick it over their head, and then we take cellophane tape and it forms the shape of their hair, something like this. And then we draw their hairline onto the bag. So then this is lifted off their head and put onto these heads. And this is actually Annie's head. You can see her, it's Lila's hair. Then we make a cap, which is made to order to fit within these lines, their hairline, their nape, their ears. And it's made on different meshes there's a heavier mesh in the back, and then there's this very fine mesh that sits right on their hairline. And you can see we've already started this where we tie in the hairs, 2 or 3 maybe in the back, and by the time you get to the very front, it's just 1 hair at a time. The main thing that we try to do is make the hair look very natural. So if it's hand-tied and it's made to order, they look more natural. If you go to the store and buy, well, you've all seen them, they always look like they have too much hair, they're an odd color, because usually they're synthetic fibers. All of the wigs that we will make for Annie are made out of human hair, which we dye to order or whatever we need to make it right for that character. One of the most rewarding aspects of what I do is when the final product all comes together, that the show is a huge hit and everybody's happy. But the process is almost the most important. When you work with other designers and actors who've been doing it as long as we have, we're all working to make it work, and that can be a great joy when all those parts come together. So I'm hoping that you all come to see Annie, leave not thinking about the great wigs or the great costumes, but thinking what a great time you've had, and enjoy the show.
The director of a musical is kind of the boss, the chief. He's in charge, or she's in charge of the entire production, involved in casting the show, in choosing the creative team that he works with. The director really begins his work months, sometimes years, prior to the actual first rehearsal of the show. And one of the first things you do as the director is put your creative team together of designers, the person who does the set, the costumes, and the person who down the line will do the lights and the sound. Often what I'll do with my designers, the set and costume designer, is do research. We'll get books and photographs and newsreels and movies that take place around the time of the show, and in this case that's 1933. Once we gather together to begin rehearsing the show, the director works with the stage manager, and the stage manager is the person who organizes the day-to-day rehearsals and will be in charge of bringing the show into the theater and will remain with the show and make sure the show is running as it should for every single performance. My day is often somewhat busy and chaotic because I'm running between the room where the dancers are and the room where the people are singing, and then also I'm in my own room working with the actors on their speaking roles. And as the show progresses in rehearsal, then we all gather in the same room and work together probably the last two and a half weeks of our rehearsal process. When I get to go inside the theater, we have what we call technical rehearsals, or techs as we call them. And that's when we bring the elements that we've brought together in the rehearsal room over to the theater stage, and we start putting the actors on the actual set, and then the lighting designer comes in and starts lighting them, and the sound designer starts balancing his sound with the microphones to hear them sing. For me, it's probably the most exciting process of what I do, because it's the first time you get to see the whole picture come together. Once the show actually begins playing, I get to go away. And my stage manager and my associate director stay with the show, and they keep an eye on it, and they answer questions for the actors. As a director, I like to come back and see my shows maybe once every 2 weeks. And I will do what we call notes, which means the director comes in and watches the show, and then after the show sits down with the cast and talks to them a little bit about what they were doing and ways they might improve it or other things they might think of. And keeps an eye on the show. But basically it's the associate director who is there day to day to make sure that everything operates as it should. It's really a story about the poorest girl in the world meeting the richest man in the world. And we of course live in a time when there are people who don't have much money, who don't have work. And we also live in a time, particularly in New York, where there are very, very wealthy people who have far more than anyone else. And I think that's an interesting story to tell. And I think Annie helps this gentleman with all this money begin to realize that money is not what life's about. If you're coming to see Annie, and I hope you'll be able to, you might have some fun either going online or getting a book and reading a little bit about New York in the 1930s. So I think it'll be fun for you to actually imagine in your own head what life would have been like at that time, and then come to our show and see how we portray it. I think seeing a theater piece is great, and as a director, what I try to do is have people who are sitting in that audience forget about their own lives and really get involved in the lives of the people on stage. And if I do my job right, they forget they're watching actors and they feel they're part of the action. And it's very exciting theater as opposed to a movie, because it's real people living the experience that they're telling you the story of in real time with you in front of you. So I would say when you come to the theater, just sit back, have a really good time, and get lost in the story.
I'm Rachel Wolf. I'm the first assistant stage manager on Annie.
And I'm Peter Lawrence. I'm what's called the production stage manager on Annie, which means the head stage manager on Annie. And you know, we were just talking about what's interesting when you go see a play is that there are always more people backstage than there are on stage. And what they're doing backstage is moving the scenery, changing the lighting, changing the costumes, running the sound on the show if there are sound playbacks on the show. If there are wigs on the show, they're putting the wigs on the actors. It takes more people than you can possibly imagine. And so I think if I were describing what a stage manager does, our job of coordination is to take all these different elements and make it look like it's one piece of storytelling on stage, and to make it happen that way every night. Everything that moves on the stage in production is ordered to do so by the stage manager by a cue. And so every light change, every scenery move, every prop move, everything is ordered by the stage manager. And so what Rachie's job is to make sure that on stage all those things are organized properly and move properly.
So the way Peter and I work as a team, he's in charge of talking to the director and choreographer and all the designers and making sure he knows how everything is going to function. And I'm on stage with the crew taking a look at and making sure that this can happen the way we think it's going to and the way we've rehearsed it in the rehearsal studio, and to make sure that everyone will be safe.
And in addition to that, Rachie and I need to make sure that it's a relaxed atmosphere backstage. Because the idea is it can't be tense on a Broadway show. You want to keep it light backstage. And especially with kids on the show, you want them to have fun. Because if they're going to be interesting on stage, they have to be having fun off stage.
One of our responsibilities as stage managers for this production is to take care of the kids and watch out for them and make sure they have everything they need.
One of the reasons that I wanted to have so many women on this show was because there are all these little girls, and I wanted to make sure that these little girls felt safe, respected, and taken care of, you know, when they were backstage.
It's important to treat them all the same way, because if you treat, especially if you treat the kids differently, they'll, start feeling, either left out or be able to take advantage of how, they're being treated and get special treatment. So you just want to treat everyone the same.
Their parents are not with them backstage. That is, the parents drop them off at the stage door, and from the moment they walk into the rehearsal hall or into the theater, they're professional actors. If the kid is with the parent, they're going to be a child with a parent. But if they're with professional and adult actors, they will become professional actors. And even though they're 7 years old, or I think our oldest is 13 years old, they're professional actors there in the same way that the 60-year-olds and the 30-year-olds are professional actors. And so as disciplined as the kids on this show will ultimately be, they also have to have a good time, because if these kids are unhappy robots, it's going to be a miserable looking show, and we can't have that. So we want to have a good time on this show.
Hi, I'm Susan Hilferty. I'm a costume designer, and I'm designing the new production of Annie. People are always surprised at what a costume designer really does. They have ideas about being a fashion designer, about clothes, or somebody who only does pretty dresses. What I like to tell people is that I'm a storyteller, and my medium is clothing. So what I'm doing is trying to identify specific things about a character in relationship to the story that everybody is trying to tell. So the way I begin is by reading the play and listening to the music. The story of Annie, I know, takes place in New York City. I know that I'm going to have very rich people and very poor people. My job is to create the people who live in my New York City. Because in fact, I have to invent this world. As you can see by my space, I love books. And books to me are a great way for me to look for inspiration. The other thing that's really important is that you touch things. So it is easy to look at a picture of a dress, but if you actually want to understand what that dress was and how it was made, you have to feel it. So I sit at my table, I start to sketch, I use my research. I have already had a conversation with the actor, and we've talked about how we want to transform. I have in my mind visions of colors and textures, and then I do the drawing. A lot of my work is drawing because I get to think visually. So the drawing is something in which I explore what a garment might look like. As soon as I have a sketch, I take it right to the people who are going to make the clothes. And the makers will include a cobbler and a dressmaker, dyers, painters, a milliner, who's somebody who makes the hats, and then we start to move forward. We start to build an idea, sketch in 3D what the costume will look like. Every single actor will come in for at least 3 fittings. And we call them fittings because that's what we're doing, is we're going to fit all of the pieces together. We are looking at these variations and hoping that they'll all go together to make the vision that I've already put together when I did my sketch in the first place. I find that costume designers in the theater come from every different kind of background. Some of them were interested in fashion, some were interested in history, some were interested in art. What I do find is that to be a good costume designer, you have to be interested in everything. History class is what we do, is all about history. It's about storytelling. Read plays, read books, draw. You need to be feeling things, fabrics, and I don't care if it's knitting or sewing or jewelry making or fixing a car. All of these things make you connect your hands and your brain. And that's really the most important thing about being any kind of designer. If you want to be an architect, if you want to design clothes, if you want to design anything, the one thing that we all have in common is that we work with our hands and we take that from our hands and bring it to our heads and our eyes. I am so excited to be designing this new version of Annie. It is a great musical. It's got great characters. It's about New York. It's so many things that I can celebrate. You, when you're watching the performance, are seeing a window. But if you imagine outside of the window, there are all of the stagehands, all the wardrobe people, the stage management, all the makers of the clothes and the scenery, whose skill and work has brought it all together for you to be able to enjoy this performance of Annie.
Hi, I'm Don Holder. I'm the lighting designer for Annie. A lighting designer creates the light through which you see the event you're looking at on stage. Light is a very powerful tool. It can affect how you feel about what you're seeing. Light can express weather. It can express time of day, the change of seasons. And so what I do is meet with the collaborators, the director, the choreographer, the designers, study the scripts, do my own research, and from all those meetings, I determine what the light is going to be doing in the show. What is the story that the light will be telling? Once I have that all figured out, we decide what lights to use and where, and there are many, many hundreds of lights in any show. And then we create a series of cues, which are basically pictures, intensities, colors of lights, moment by moment, through the course of a show or musical. And at the end of the evening, you will have seen hundreds, perhaps, of individual light cues that make up what is a finished piece. My job mainly takes place in the theater because it's in the space with the actors, with the set, with the stage that I create the light for a show. A typical day when I'm working in the theater might begin at 9 o'clock in the morning, and we come in and we focus and work on the lights, change colors, make adjustments based on what we've seen. And then in the afternoons, we work with the cast. We create the light with the actual cast on stage, working together. In the evenings, if we're in previews, meaning if we are doing performances, we'll be in the audience with everyone else, watching how the audience feels about the show. How do they respond? What things need more attention, more work? And we take notes and then come back in the next morning and keep working on it. I'm excited about Annie because it was one of my favorite films. I never actually saw the show, but I love the film and I love the story. I have kids of my own who love this show, and it's going to be so great to be a part of the next Broadway version of it.
Hi, I'm Todd Ellison, the musical director of Annie. The musical director's job involves all the aspects of the music of the show, from people's voices to the orchestra players to arranging the music, and I end up conducting the show at night. So I'm there from the beginning with the auditions all the way to the final performance in the theater. My day as the musical director would start when I go to work and change into my tuxedo and then go to everybody's dressing room, say hi, how you doing tonight, and find out if anybody's got a cold or they're not feeling good or their throat hurts, and then go down to the orchestra pit and greet the 18 players that we'll have and go to the podium, wait for I have a little red light right next to the podium, and when that goes off, I give the downbeat and away we go. And I have the best seat in the whole theater because I get to see the show right up close. Unlike a movie where the music is all pre-recorded, the Broadway show has live music. It's great to feel the power of all those people playing at the same time, when everybody breathes together and lets out a collective sound. My job really is to follow the singers, follow the actors, and make them comfortable singing their songs. Songs in a Broadway show are a continuation of the dialogue. So the actress will be saying a line, and some music will start underneath it. And that will lead her into her song. That song then takes you on another journey emotionally. It lifts. That is the purpose of the music, to lift you into another level. My parents have video of me conducting at age 2 to the air. I mean, I was literally just waving my hands in the air, so I think I always knew what I wanted to do. And when I first saw my first Broadway show, I looked down there and I saw a guy waving a stick, and I thought, that's what I'm going to do. And I've pursued my dream, and that is all I've done my whole life. I grew up in Connecticut near the Goodspeed Opera House, where Annie first started. So my first job was at Goodspeed Opera House as an usher, the year after Annie was there. My first big job was Annie 2, which was a show that became Annie Warbucks. Now I've come full circle and I get to do the real Annie, and I'm really excited to be back part of the Annie family again. I think Annie has some of the best songs ever written. Everybody knows Tomorrow. Everybody knows Annie. They know her red dress, they know her red wig, they know her dog Sandy, and they know her song. And I think that's what makes Annie live on.
Hi, I'm Ariel Tepper-Madover, producer of Annie on Broadway. Being the producer means that you're responsible for just about everything that you're going to see on stage and everything that happens off stage. To present a show on Broadway, the first thing you have to do is get the rights. And getting the rights means asking the authors for permission. After I got the rights to do the show, it was time for me to pick a director. I met with James Lapine, who is a wonderful visionary. He's a great director and has directed other shows that are for kids and adults, so I thought he would be the perfect person to direct Annie. Theater is considered to be really collaborative, and that's definitely the way I produce. I work with my directors very, very closely. I make sure we're always in agreement on everything, and I really make sure that they have the opportunity to do the work that they want to do without getting in their way. Another responsibility of mine is the marketing and advertising. So first we have to come up with the logo and the look for the show. So we chose to go with an updated version of the original Annie logo so that people would know it was the same type of thing in an updated way. I work in an office building in the middle of Times Square, which is the most fun because you're surrounded by theaters everywhere. And some days, if I'm just going to be on the phone doing conference calls, making phone calls and getting work done on email, I'll work from home because I do have 3 children and I like to spend time with them. I think to be a producer, there really is no one path, but it's always good to, if you want to work in this business at all, to really get some experience. And I think internships are really good, and really working in the business and finding people that you can learn from, that you can call your mentor. I'm very excited for this production of Annie because I believe that it's time for new generations to have the opportunity to see this show on Broadway. Annie really inspired me when I was a kid. Her hope and optimism was just such a great joy to see. And as an audience member, I was an only child. So I loved the idea that she lived with 6 other girls, even though she lived in an orphanage with Miss Hannigan. I really hope that when you leave the theater after seeing Annie, you're as excited as I was the first time I saw the show.
Hi, my name is David Corrins and I'm the set designer for Annie. I basically create environments and scenery and total worlds for the stage. I read a play or a musical, listen to the music, and through a whole bunch of conversations with the director, the playwright, the composers, we look at research, we build models, we do renderings, and through all of that process we wind up creating a stage environment. Annie takes place in 1933 in New York City, in a very specific point in American history where the economy was down in the dumps, the president's approval rating was falling, and that the whole world really needs hope. And that is the trajectory that Annie takes. She goes from that Lower East Side grit to that Central Park fabulous palace. And it's fun. I mean, it's a fun journey that she takes, and it's a fun journey that we get to take as a creative team in making that world. I work with a team of people every day in my studio with associates and assistants who help me be able to articulate to everyone that's going to eventually have to engineer and build the design. So we work with drafting, which is a technical drawing, sort of like architectural drawings. We work with building models, which are tools to talk to the scene shop, the people that are going to build the scenery. My process of designing a set is very heavily based in model making. We start in very, very rough white model form out of like paper and mat board and cardboard and whatever else we can find around the studio and kind of glue it all together. And then as the idea gets more and more refined, the models get more and more refined. We move slowly into color, we move slowly into like really refining the proportions and the line of the design. And it's important because nothing can really replace a scale replica of the thing that's going to show up on stage. If anyone is interested in becoming a set designer for the theater, I would think the number one thing they should learn how to do is communicate. Being able to draw and articulate and communicate with your hand is very important, but also being able to communicate with your voice and being able to explain to people what it is that is your particular take or a point of view on a story. It is all storytelling, whether it's visual storytelling or performance storytelling. What I do every day is tell stories. We're making an Annie for 2012 and beyond, and it's such an honor to be given that challenge to do that. I'm also incredibly excited the fact that I have a 7-year-old. I will have a 7-year-old daughter when the show opens, so and who's a huge fan of Annie. So to get to take her down the red carpet and see and be part of that production is really extra special.
Hi, my name is Brian Ronan, and I am the sound designer for Annie the Musical. As a sound designer, it's my job to make sure that everybody in the audience can hear every word that the actors say or sing and every note that the musicians play. So we actually get very small microphones and we hide them in the hair of the actors, and sometimes that's up in their wigs and sometimes in their hats. We also make sure that every musician has a microphone near him, depending on the kind of instrument they're playing. And I try to get the best quality sound out of every tone that they play, mix that down with the voices during a song, and spread it out throughout the whole house. If you ever go to a show and you see a person, a man or a woman, standing in the back of the theater with a very sophisticated looking piece of electronics, kind of looks like the when you're come into a pilot's a cockpit on a plane. And that's where the sound board is. And it's out in the house because the sound operator has to make sure he can hear what the audience is hearing. We try to find a theater that has really good acoustics, and acoustics are the quality within the theater that allow the sound to travel from the performer's mouth to the audience's ears without bouncing around a lot. Carnegie Hall is a place that's often described as a place that has perfect acoustics. And it's true, if you sit there and someone speaks on stage and you're all the way up in the balcony, you can hear them perfectly. And that's because the architect built the room in a way that allowed the sound to propel towards the audience, and that's what we call good acoustics. I bumped into theater very accidentally. I went to school in Hawaii many, many years ago. And I got friendly with a teacher who asked me to help him out on to build a set and hang some lights for a show. And I had never had any experience with theater before, but it reminded me of the only other thing that I used to love a lot, which was playing sports, because it was a very live experience, and you had to be part of a team, and you only got one chance to get it right, and people clapped for you when you did it well, and people booed at you when you did it badly. So it was very familiar to me. I decided I liked doing sound because it was something at the end of the day, you were kind of by yourself, and I kind of like working by myself. And at one point you're there with your mixing board and your speakers, and you're the only person who can operate it. and that made me very comfortable, and I kind of liked working in that environment. So I'm hoping the kids when they leave Annie will realize that there's a whole bunch of jobs out there that are really fun and really good things to be a part of, and maybe they'll look up past just the actors and see what else is out there for them.